Ayo, what a div, y'all. Let's get right into it. It's time for me to go ahead and give y'all an update on the Ignite Infernal Elementalist I've been playing, especially that it's been a couple of days. We're no longer in just shambles of gear getting through the first two watchstones. We are now 4 watchstones down, as well as just kind of generally blasting through maps. The Atlas is done for the most part. I just have to decide to actually buy the remaining unique maps that I need and maybe do a feared if I'm really feeling it. I'm not feeling it, so who knows when that'll actually get done. But maybe whenever I do feel the vibes there, I'll do that. But I just wanted to make this video to show you guys the updated state of the character, talk a little bit about what I'm doing with it as well. I won't talk about like too much money making stuff, just more like what type of stuff I find that this character has been excelling in so far. Um, Again, mostly to let you guys see the character in case you haven't been on stream. Because I know most of you guys aren't there, but you guys should come check it out. Link in the description. I stream in the evenings. If you want to come through and see that, as well as just talk to you a little bit. Then I'll show you the character and kind of go over some of the priorities with the character that I've noticed now that I've been able to play it from ground zero to up, because this was something that was pretty hard for me to predict in my league start video, how I actually value the progression curve at each stage. So get into that. Also, like, subscribe to support the video, turn the notification bell on to know when you know when I will post, right? You know the deal. All right. So let's talk a little bit the character, because it is in a fantastic state now. It feels about as good as it felt when I first played it. And the only real difference between then and now is definitely the fact that it didn't cost me 30 div to put it together. I think the character's value altogether might be under 15, maybe even under 10, to be honest. Like, I don't know. I have to look at the value of his 6-link Cloak of Flame, because that's about like the only thing that really costed me anything to put this character together. And I guess the Aureus end, but that was not necessary for it to feel good. That was just another step in making it feel even better type of deal. The character's fantastic. The mapping is stellar, right? The Claire, as you know, even before Aureus is insane, but once you get Aureus, which it was only 6 div when I purchased mine, I do not know if that's currently rising or not. If it is, I would recommend looking at getting one pretty soon once your character has its legs under it. Like, I literally went from, I was like 6-link Cloak of Flame, and I was like, do I spend money on my ring or do I just go buy an Aureus? And I went and bought Aureus because I just think it was a better purchase. It just massively throws your clear speed, especially if you're like me and you are farming Expedition or Blight, or if you are dabbling, even with the league mechanic, it's pretty useful if you're into like any clear heavy thing, even literally just clearing maps. Like, even if you're just speed boss rushing with like boxes and shrines on your maps for gold farming, as well as getting like just straight boss rushing stuff, it's still valuable even for that. And in terms of what the character is actually good for, I've noticed that the defensive package has actually allowed me to do pretty much everything. Like, my invitations went moderately smoothly. I'm not gonna say perfectly, but it's definitely because I made some questionable decisions regarding my chaos res early on, and that's gonna be one of my bigger tips to you, is to actually make sure you prioritize your chaos res. I felt like I played at under 20 chaos res for way too long on this character, and I could have definitely addressed that a lot sooner. It would have made my life a lot better, especially going into specifically the Twisted and Elder Slayers invitations. Al Hesman and the Constrictor were a lot bigger of a headache than they had any right being, because of my lack of, well, chaos res, right? Like, that just literally hurts way too much. Also consider, ways to deal with poison, including just upping your regen further. You've noticed we've indexed pretty hard into regen. And I will say, just like as an additional thing, if you feel like Flesh and Stone is not particularly useful, or if you're dying a lot to things that are not near you, and you have to be really close for Flesh and Stone to be of value, I would consider switching out Flesh and Stone for a leveled Vitality, as that way you can just have more regen against things that like aren't killing you in the first hit. You lose some potential mitigation, right? So potential max hit lost, but in exchange you'll get recovery, because recovery is still one of this build's like weakest spots. We don't have any recovery outside of our regen, really, even with like, say, like a recoup implicit, or if you start taking like infused flesh on the tree, start to modify the tree around a little bit. Like, even with stuff like that, you don't have a fantastic source of recovery. But yeah, so that's like stuff in terms of that. But it really is good for everything. I felt like I could have done invitation farming at the time at which I killed my Uber Elder and Maven. We were chilling at like 5 million DPS, which felt very good in invitations. We were already like able to kill invitation bosses before the others spawned with like decent map mod rolls, obviously. And the Uber Elder and Maven went super swimmingly, so the character's like very well rounded. In my current state, I did just do a T17 yesterday, and that felt easy and fantastic as well. The nerf definitely helped. Not as massive as they made it out to be, but definitely a big deal. It just generally character can do pretty much anything that isn't like super range dependent. Like, unfortunately, not really that good for Legion. Unfortunately, not really that good for Sanctum. But for most other mapping content, I have found this character to be extremely sufficient. One thing I would look into is if you're thinking about doing like Harvey, you may want to consider investing harder into spell block or going suppression, which viewer shot by Twitch, the name Throwaway, and showed me a PoB that they were working on that like has some really good suppression investment in it because he was looking at scaling it potentially for Ubers, and it looked like a very cheap setup. So I'll actually drop that setup in the comments just so you can kind of see like what they were working on because it is a very good top end setup that I'm considering doing. But I think I'm going to take the character a different direction, closer to my original direction, as well as just to keep to keep the spending on my part down a little bit because I might also actually be done with the character. But I'll talk about that in a little bit. I just want to go ahead and get in game now and show you guys the character, go over some details and some things that I did change, and then talk about the future of the character, potentially the build, and all that good stuff. All right, so talk about the character very quickly here. Level 95, all that good stuff. Major upgrades that have been made. A lot of slots have changed, right? Still wearing core uniques such as Story of the Vol, Anxiety and Dawn. We now have Cloak of Flame plus Dawnbreaker for insane physical mitigation because Saffles, while providing us with elemental mitigation, was destroying us in two different ways. One, it was not providing a lot in the physical front, which is what we were definitely dying to. And the other thing related to physical is that I felt like we needed block, like actual attack block, and Saffles, while giving a spell block, disabled our ability to attack block. And I think I should have considered a rare shield instead in order to actually have attack block because I noticed instantly how much tankier I became overall when I had this, Dawnbreaker, and I started just literally not taking damage from attacks. Plus, then you start to add in good rares across the board. I need to get better boots, but it is what it is. Make sure you get the fizz taken as implicit on the helmet because that does still exist, and so that's another layer of mitigation for us to really like into. As well as I have the strike range on this because I had an open prefix and I realized that strike range is better than like 20 life because strike range is just super comfortable, especially when paired with our ancestral call. But we have +1 strike on gloves because that's super important. Exposure on hit as well, so that we don't need Wave of Conviction to ever apply exposure. Quick note about Eye of Malice. I am not running Eye of Malice because this is not a single target oriented setup. I am not looking to delete bosses with this character, especially at this current state. All the footage that you've seen in this video, including any bossing footage, was done with these gloves on as opposed to Eye of Malice. So I don't actually need that much for a single target because I'm aiming to do map farming content as opposed to bossing content. And I find Eye of Malice only is really particularly strong in content where you are multi-cursing the target and all of that good stuff there. This is more of a playstyle thing. You can opt how you choose there. And the PoB that I mentioned in the intro will actually include Eye of Malice because it is a single target focus setup that is dual cursing with Flam and LE weakness to really like crank out minus resistances on big single targets. Otherwise, take a look at our tincture here. Getting a good tincture is very, very important. This tincture, when conveyed properly in PoB, you'll notice, by the way, when you're looking at my PoB, if you're looking at this when I posted it, this damage over time multiplier with melee weapon attacks line does not actually work in PoB at the moment. So I had to add another 25 line to this tincture. If you have this PoB at a time at which the mod is finally updated to function, there's a chance that your damage looks even more inflated. So make sure you take out the additional 25% that I added. But being able to click this tincture gives us a 30% damage increase or something like that. And we can activate it right, when we're detonating our big 6-stacker. And we don't need the 100% uptime that other people are going for because of the fact that we only need it to be active when we put the ignite on the target, which is perfect. This is so much damage, and I like this so much more than my other options in this slot. Otherwise, items are pretty standard. I don't think I need to cover too much unless you're not familiar with the Ignite package of just every unique in the world that is useful for Ignite because Ignite attacks have so many useful options. Ooh, my ship is back. Nice. Anyways, that stuff is good there. On the tree, the major change is that there's now a cluster jewel or fan the flames to pair with the Aureus End. Because Aureus End is responsible for a lot of the insane clear you are seeing. The clear is good before Aureus End, don't get me wrong, but when you get Aureus End plus Ignite Prolif, whether it be through Fan the Flames in this particular version, or if you don't have Aureus End to really make it go far, I recommend something like a Barracks Respite. potentially in place of the curse on hit ring that I'm running in order to really get that clear that dominates like blights and expedition or even just like shrines. That whole thing kind of goes insane there. And to get this in, we did do some respecting of points. You'll notice the tree pathing has changed a little bit, just in terms of what I value and prioritize. This pathing here, for example, is more expensive than this, but this small passive is better than any other small passive for me I could find right now. And I wanted to get the strength in the doing so. As it stands now, the tree is pretty efficient. Like a lot of my damage nodes are like approaching 3% per point at the moment, which is I don't have a lot of leeway for taking out damage effectively. Even like again, like even stuff like this minion section here is pretty efficient, and I'm very reluctant to give this up anyways, just as a heads up, because it's a lot of attack speed, right? This is 16% attack speed to go with this 16% attack speed. That's 32% attack speed from the tree that you would have to find a way to make up somehow if you were to take it out of here. Just because while attack speed does not directly scale our damage, it does make it feel better, both for mapping and for bossing, as well as give us the ability to refresh our ignites faster and actually roll for better ignites. Other stuff of that nature. Some quick tips for gearing, by the way. Make sure you actually get your chaos res up. I'm only at 42 right now, but I do have a amethyst flask that is pretty consistently active because I'm always getting hit. Therefore, we are at like 75 chaos res a lot of the time. One other note about the setup, by the way, is that since we are not running armor or evasion, red altars that remove your armor and evasion are pretty irrelevant to us. And that's what's actually going to get into my next point. Since I've been able to take the altars that cut my armor evasion because they're very irrelevant stats to our defenses, as if you like look around in PoB and play with this, you'll realize they're very irrelevant to our survivability. I'm actually going to probably look at making a ward helmet for sure, almost for certain, and maybe even a ward glove to give us more max hit against like big single target hits when I'm still at full HP from various things. Because I think that's like one of the scarier things that I can face. It's just like a first hit that sends me to the Shadow Realm, as well as maybe even try to get one of the faster recharge of ward suffixes just to get it closer to like a 1.5 cooldown instead of a 2-second cooldown on that overshield protection, because we cannot recover ES on this build as we are running Blood Rage. And even if we weren't running Blood Rage, we do not have a lot of ES to try to recover, and I'm not sure how I would recover it besides like Divine Shield, except Divine Shield does not function. We do not have that much armor, so like we could technically get our Divine Shield back through this, but it's just not really gonna do it the way you want it to do it. So there are gonna be better ways to get around about it. In a similar vein, character is like looking pretty complete here. That's kind of what I mentioned in the intro. I'm pretty happy with the state of the character. I am providing the option for you to scale further into it. Good watches, eye mods, all that stuff. One defensive note that I would consider is that I feel like Flesh and Stone may be a little bit weak in the sense that it is really, really good when you are getting jumped on, right? When you're getting jumped at by like cat type enemies, for example, or just anything that gets close to you, reducing that damage by 19% is actually really good. Really, really good, right? But I'm thinking about replacing this with Vitality to instead improve my survivability against like very nasty ignites, because that's something that I just don't have a lot of protection against at the moment. And that would require some other investments, such as like a Storm Shroud setup potentially to get out of. Or if you go the suppression route, you could consider an Ancestral Vision setup to become properly element immune, and then definitely just not need Arctic Armor or Tempest Shield at all. A lot of options here. The world's really your oyster with scaling up this character. And so I just wanted to provide you with where I'm at with scaling the character, as I am kind of just blasting at this point. You saw a lot of the footage of Expedition. I've also started trying out Blight as well, figuring out what to make currency with, because I'm looking at Mage Blood potentially for the future reroll, or juicing of this character, whichever way I decide to take it. It's worth noting, by the way, even once I get the Mage Blood, I will still be showing off the character with and without the Mage Blood. I will not just be leaving you guys high and dry and being like, oh, you don't have a Mage Blood, your build sucks. But I mean, I do intend on buying a Mage Blood just because I think it's good to farm out Mage Blood before thinking about character upgrades. Once I know that my character is comfortable and solid and just needs to spend more hours in maps, that way I can get it for any project that I want to do that will actually involve it, right? Or, just benefit from it, like a Hexflash, Trickster, and Sanctum, for example, right? Like, I just want to be able to actually have the option to go that extra mile without needing to spend another week, like, making money to get it ready. Anyways, I think that covers everything that I wanted to talk about with the current state of the character. If you guys have any questions about the character, please feel free to drop those in the comments or hop in the Discord and ask the question there, or come by the stream when I'm streaming. And I've been streaming in the evenings for a couple of hours every night. I think I'm going to try to keep that up going forward. So, feel free to stop by there. The links to the Discord and Twitch are in the description down below. Or again, I do see all of you guys' comments. If you have any questions, do ask there. Like and subscribe, support the video, support the channel, hit the notification bell when you subscribe if you want to know more about when I'm posting. And thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.